Jessica Frost Ballas here for Lawnfawn, and today I'm sharing a cheery interactive card featuring some cute skating couples. When the recipient opens the card, the two bears do a little twirl on the ice, and the wintry scene continues on the inside of the card. So let's get started. First, I'm using images from Mice on Ice, Beary Happy Holidays, Over the Mountain Borders, and Den Sweet Den. I stamped bears and mice from 3 of the sets with Copic-friendly black ink onto white cardstock. I thought the little bear from Den Sweet Den looked like he might have taken a fall while skating, and would be perfect for my scene. So I stamped him and then used a Copic-friendly multiliner to draw a skate to resemble the skates from Beary Happy Holidays. I'll show you a little trick to die cut him later. I colored all of my images with Copic markers. I wanted my bears to be polar bears, so I added a little shading with toner gray markers. I started with my darkest shade of gray around the edges to give them a little roundness, and then blended out to my lightest shade. I also used a colorless blender to soften the edges of my T0 marker. Then I added a little bit more of the darker shades to create more contrast. These particular bear stamps in Beary Happy Holidays are perfect mirror images, so you can die cut them and adhere them together to create a front and back image, as you'll see later. I repeated this on my second spinning bear and the baby bear. I colored all the accessories in shades of teals or purples and used the same strategy of starting with the darkest marker and blending out to the lightest on their scarves and hats. I didn't show all this on camera, but I colored the mice with the E70 range and then die cut everything with the coordinating dies. I also added a little R00 and R02 for their ears and cheeks. To die cut my baby bear, I taped the die on top of him and then arranged him on my cutting plates. I made sure to leave his foot uncovered so the die wouldn't cut all the way through. Then I simply fussy cut around his new skate, leaving a little border to resemble the die borders. Next, I stamped the Over the Mountain borders onto 2 panels of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock with Copic-friendly black ink. I also stamped the mountains onto masking paper and fussy cut them. I used my MISTI to make sure I stamped the mountains in the same position. I placed my mask on one mountain range and then blended Shaded Lilac, Blueprint Sketch, and Chipped Sapphire Distress Oxide ink over the mountains. Then I carefully removed the mask, placed it over the other panel, and blended the same colors. Then I placed the mask on the backing paper and trimmed off the mountains. Placing it on the backing paper just makes it a little easier to cut. I placed the mountains on the panels, placed a scrap piece of paper over the blended sky to protect it, and then blended a little tumbled glass below the mountains. I repeated that on the second panel as well. Once I was done, I left the mountain mask in place and put a piece of scrap paper over the ground, leaving the sky exposed. I splattered it with water and then added splatters of watered-down white gouache to create a snowy sky. I removed the mask, placed it on the other panel, and repeated the splattering process. Then I let the panels dry completely. Next, I placed one of the simple stitched Hillside dies over another panel of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock and die cut it to create my skating pond. I lined up the cut hill on a second piece of Bristol cardstock and used it as a guide to adhere the die and die cut a matching pond. I added a little ink blending around the pond using cracked pistachio, peacock feathers, and tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink. Then I adhered the ponds to each blended panel. Next, I colored the mountains with cool gray Copic markers. I used darker shades for the mountains in the distance and lighter shades for the closer mountains. I kept my darker shading on the edges of the mountains and blended to the lighter colors in the center. Once my background scenes were complete, it was time to work on the interactive portion. I started by die cutting a circle from one of the panels. Then I scored and creased a side-folding A2 card base and lined up the panel with the circle cut out on top. I used a pencil to trace the circle, and then used that outline as a guide for adhering the same circle die on top of my card base. I opened the card base and ran it through my die cutting machine so it would die cut the circle only on the front of the card base. Then I used a stitched rectangle to die cut the other panel to 5 by 3 3/4 inches. Next, I adhered the front and back of my teal scarved bear together using ATG adhesive. I added the same adhesive to both sides of the purple scarved bear and adhered one side to the teal bear so it would look like they were clasping paws. Then I took a piece of monofilament string and adhered it to the adhesive on the purple bear. It's a small area, so I realized that it would be easier to use mint tape to hold the ends of the string in place at the top and bottom on my glass mat, and then line up my bears and press them together to sandwich the string in between. Next, I used the same mint tape trick to hold the string in place while I lined up the bears in the middle of the circle I die cut in the card base. I used double-sided adhesive to adhere the string to the card base. After both sides of the string were adhered, I pulled back the adhesive backing, and then folded the string against the adhesive again and trimmed off the end. This just prevents the string from easily pulling loose with repeated twirls. I removed the adhesive backing, added adhesive over my other circle die cut piece, and then adhered them together again, sandwiching the string ends between them. Next, I added adhesive to the back of the other background panel scene. Then I used the circle as a guide to line up the scene and carefully closed the card to adhere the panel to the inside of the card base. I used my MISTI to stamp a little heart trail from my fallen baby bear on the front of my card panel, and then adhered my sentiment and stamped images on the front of the card. I stamped and heat embossed the sentiment from Very Happy Holidays onto black cardstock with white embossing powder. I thought it was the perfect sentiment for my spinning bears. On the inside of the card, I added a sentiment for Valentine's Day, stamped from Special Delivery and my other skating couple. Then it was time for finishing touches. I added accents and more stars in the sky with a white gel pen, and added touches of glitter to the mountains and scarves with my glitter pen. And that's it. There's room to write a message next to the skating mice or on the left side of the card. Spin the bears a few times and then tuck the card into an envelope. When the recipient opens the card, the bears will spin in an impressive skating move. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial today. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until next time, have a fantastic day and happy crafting. Bye!